My first and last name, I'm Amy Orwig. I live in Pekin, Illinois, which is in the central part of the state of Illinois in the United States. We are currently actually part of the United Church of Christ is our denomination. That has changed since our child came out. I am the mom of a transgender child. I have always known that our now daughter was not quite as masculine as other boys, perhaps in the Boy Scout troop that she was part of. This child is an Eagle Scout now. But I have always known that I have loved that child with my entire heart. Going back, even when I was carrying this child, before she was born, in my heart, I knew I had a second daughter. I was surprised when the doctor said otherwise. You know, what I have learned since she came out is that she's the same person. The difference is that now she's happier. She's more at peace. There's even more joy. This child has always been a delight for us. There was a period in her young adolescence where she seemed a bit more withdrawn, and now that's not the case at all. She is out. She's a young adult now, and she's out doing all sorts of things for herself that we never knew that she could do, because she's got that that comfort level with herself. And I think the fact that we as a family have affirmed her and continue to love and support her has certainly helped with that. So after Chloe first came out, you know, in the early days after she first came out, it was a bit scary. It was like my husband and I felt like we were living as double agents, so to speak, in a way. It was like we felt like at home we had a daughter. In public, we had a daughter, our oldest child, and a son. But our relationship with Chloe, at first it was kind of, we felt like we were walking on eggshells because we were afraid to say the wrong thing. But it turns out that just being able to continually say to her, you know, we love you, and we know God loves you, and we know that God made you to be this amazing person that you are, that helped us through, because we continue to affirm that love, and just saying it reflected back to us, and it strengthened our relationship. And in fact, within the first couple months, I was starting groups, because there were no groups in the area for teens. I started a group for LGBTQ plus teens in our area. I started a PFLAG chapter, which here in the States is it's a national organization for support for parents and allies and members of the LGBTQ plus community. And my husband and I just got busy showing that we are allies and want to help. We want to help keep kids from being kicked out, ultimately. So since Chloe came out, I have learned that God's creativity is so much larger than the box that we as Christians tend to place God in. It's so easy to think God created just male and female. But you know, God didn't just create day and night. God created dawn and dusk. And God didn't create dry land and wet. God created damp sand and boggy areas. And God doesn't belong in that little box. God has this expansive creativity and this deep love for the entirety of God's creation that it's mind-boggling and beautiful and so comforting. On Chloe's 18th birthday, actually we'll back up a bit. So a few months prior to Chloe coming out, or on her 18th birthday, so she was still 17, her birthday's in July, this was in February, she told my husband, have you ever heard the term bisexual? Because I think that's how I identify. And so that was kind of a soft coming out. And what I have discovered since is often kids who are transgendered, they try that first, kind of a soft, how will my parents react to this before I show my entire self? So she told my husband and I went out to dinner. He told me with her permission. And we came home from dinner and I gave her a big hug and I said, we'll love you no matter what. We'll love you no matter who you bring home, and we'll love them too. And God loves you and this changes nothing. And then to be funny, she used double negatives and I said, now that could get you kicked out. So, and then on her 18th birthday, she again came out to my husband first through text. She went in the bathroom and she was there for a very long time, like an hour. And she texted him and said, we have one member of our family who's transgender. And Chloe said, Sophia. I'm like Sophia. And my husband said, okay, that's cool. And she finally made a reappearance. We gave her a hug, told her we love you, and I texted her later because she seemed uncomfortable talking about it verbally at first. So I texted her and I said, even before you were born, here's my cat, this is Raja. Even before you were born, I had a feeling that you were a girl. So this just shows that I've known all along. So, and nothing has changed except that now we can talk makeup tips. So it's good. We did, of course, have some fears. Most of those fears were based on how society would react to her. Over here in the States, there's red areas and blue areas. There's Republican and Democrat. There's conservative and more forward or progressive. And we are in more of a conservative area. And I spent months, probably years even, just in full-on mama bear mode, just waiting for somebody to look at my child the wrong way so I could attack them. And it turns out I never had to. People have been very kind. And if someone says anything rude to her, Chloe has kind of let it roll off. Sure, it bothers her a little bit, but fortunately she is in a mindset where she's able to let it pass, and she's okay. I know for some people that is not the case. So we need to, this is wonderful, getting the word out, sharing stories. And there's Merlin. You've now met the family. My husband's at work. So getting the stories out and showing that, we're all people. We're all people deserving of love and respect and kindness. And I'm hoping that will eventually lead the world to a place where that fear doesn't need to exist, that someone will be mean. and we can all just be happy together, so to speak. So we did not find affirmation and support in the community we were with. That was an Assemblies of God church at the time. We did speak to the lead pastor, and his response was that he would never ever say anything unkind about Chloe or anyone in the community from the pulpit, and true to his word, he never did. Completely. There were a few times where it was the issue was skirted around, and then there were people within the congregation. It was a large church. There were some people within the congregation who were starting to kind of talk about us. We could tell, and Chloe was a valued helper with the younger kids until it became known that she was transgender, and then she was pretty much taken off the schedule and ghosted. And in fact, my husband, that church runs a homeless shelter, and they have transitional housing where it's an apartment for people who they're trying to find housing for. And my husband had started a program where they were doing computer training. He was training they were mostly women. He was training them on basic computer skills so that they could get a job. And there were a few people that he trained that went on to go to community college and then went on to get a job. And they didn't need to rely on the state to find housing for them. But as soon as it became known that our daughter was transgender and we didn't kick her out, his program was stopped, even though it was helping all of these other people. So we left. We found an affirming church community, and we're glad we did. So we are currently attending a United Church of Christ, which on a national level is open and affirming. Our church is, again, we're in more of a conservative area. So the church, I always say it's open and affirming, and it's the best kept secret in the community because they certainly don't advertise it. Now, I don't believe anyone in the church would ever say anything unkind. They've always been very kind and welcoming when Chloe has joined us at church, and they've always been kind and welcoming to other people from the LGBTQ community who have come in the doors. But they're uncomfortable. They don't fully know what to say. They know what not to say. I mean, they're not holding signs that say, you're going to burn for this. They know that God loves everyone, and that right there is a good starting point. And I'm actually the youth coordinator for that church, which is basically an unordained children's pastor. So I'm kind of helping a little bit to try and nudge the community to be a bit more brave and a bit more intentional in affirming the LGBTQ plus community. And they're getting there, I think. I think it'll be okay. Chloe and I, and my husband and Chloe and even our older daughter, we all have a good relationship. Of course, it was of course difficult to get used to new names and pronouns and everything, but we have helped Chloe through each phase. She's in fact getting married to her girlfriend. They got engaged over the February 14th Valentine's Day weekend, so that was exciting. What's nice is that both of them still identify as Christian. Neither of them is actually currently attending a church on a regular basis. Part of that is due to the fact that Chloe is working for Starbucks, the big coffee chain. And she keeps getting scheduled to work on Sundays, even though she said, I'd like Sundays off, but So part of that is just her age and her responsibilities. And then her partner doesn't like to go anywhere by herself. So they're not going to church, but they both still know God loves them, because I've had chats with both of them. So, well, one time I do have one regret when Chloe was early on in this journey, and she said to me one afternoon, my pronouns are she, her, and I've decided on the name Chloe. And my response was, well, you don't expect us to call you that while you look like a boy, do you? Hi. And she said, no, I guess not. And then the next day I started calling her Chloe, and she and her, and told my husband, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. And that's what we did. So she gave us a lot of grace, thank goodness. If your child has just come out, what I will say to you is just continue to love that child that you have known their entire lives. They have not changed. That essence of that child, their beautiful heart, their beautiful soul is not changing. The outside may change a bit, but often it's going to be for the better. You're going to see more joy, and it will be beautiful. It's not an easy journey, but it is so, so worth it. And just know that God is with you every step of the way, and God loves you and loves your child. And you can always count on that.